So there's so many pictures that really illustrate a lot of the points that I'll make, and we'll do the best we can with groups. I'll do a bunch of talking first, and then we'll split into groups and look at the frames. So the frames, I've been collecting diseased frames for years now, and I'm so excited. I have like this treasure chest. It's a freezer, and I'm just thrilled to share this stuff with you because they're such good examples. But anyway, first of all, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Cowlitz County, Bill, and the new president, right?
Of Cowlitz County.
Of Cowlitz County. You guys came up with this idea of outdoors, and I'm terrified of not having a PowerPoint because it's kind of a safety net. But I'm also so happy to see you in person, and it's just so great to be back. Okay, so let's talk about diseases. It's not just about diseases we're going to talk about today, it's also how to level up your beekeeping with observational skills. So how to really sharpen those observational skills to slow down. You're not just doing a spring inspection to look for what stores there are, if the queen's there, like really take a close look. And so we'll talk about how to do all of that. Okay, first of all, in your observational skills, in developing them, you need the right tools. So what we have are these little kits, and inside of these kits, we keep this with all of our bee stuff, and I hope this is something you adopt. If you haven't already, you need some gloves. These are nitrile gloves, and but any kind of disposable gloves, you want them to be disposable in case you get into something pretty gnarly that you got to throw them away. A flashlight. So light is so important in getting the right. You've tried to look for eggs before, and you have to have the light in just the right angle. And it's the same with diseases. You really need good lighting. So have a flashlight. This is actually pretty puny, so I got this bigger one. But the sun is really the best kind of light that you can use. A magnifying glass. Or reading glasses if you need to get up close and look at some things. Forceps or tweezers. I think this is our favorite tool. Ellen and I are crazy about forceps. We have our favorite ones that no one's allowed to touch, and they're just so good for picking around. So I hope when you guys go home to your colonies, when you do your spring inspections, that you just pick and pick and pick and just explore what's under the cappings. If you see anything weird, just pick away. Picking out larvae kills them, but you're doing this to learn, and you're doing this for the health of the rest of the colony. It's kind of like a varroa sample. You have to sacrifice a few in order to know what's going on. So lots of picking, lots of toothpicks. If you even have an inkling that there's American foul brood, just go through and do a whole bunch of those ropey tests. We'll do some today, and we'll look at that. So what else we got in here? The kits that you buy from the bee supply stores. There's a separate one for AFB and EFB. Has anyone used one? You have? Okay, so they're really easy. All the instructions are on the back, and all you do is collect a bunch of larvae. You have to suspect what you're looking at. So you have to think, okay, I think I saw a little bit of ropiness. I think it's going to be AFB. So get out your AFB kit, because they're only one-time uses, and they're specific. So you collect a bunch of larvae.
For our club to know that our club actually owns a couple of each of the kits. So if you really, you've gotten into your hives and you expect American foul brood, you can give me a call, and I can come out and check it out. Either you can replace the kit afterwards, buy a new one for the club, or the club will cover the cost, because we consider American foul brood so important that we want to make sure that we're all covered.
That's fantastic. It's awesome to have a club set, because they expire, and you might not see American foul brood, hopefully not in your life. You will probably see European foul brood in your life, but you don't, for example, this one expired in November 2021. So, you gotta, it's great to have a club kit. Okay, so make something like this of your own and keep it with all of your bee stuff, and just have all of this ready, because you never know when you're going to have a disease pop out, and especially springtime, a lot of diseases come out in springtime. So have your stuff ready, not in the house where you have to run back, especially those forceps. Proper lighting, I just talked about. Use the sun. You want the sun over your shoulders, so the sun is pointing into your frame. And let's do demos on that when we get our frames out. Okay. On
We
how.
have a couple frames right here too.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, she's okay. Fine. Go for it.
Okay. So, a great way to know if the sun's in the right place is you look at your shadow. So my shadow is right there, and so I'm in the right place. And then you can look right down in the bottom. And when you're looking for American foul brood, sorry.
That's all right. It's all right.
If you're looking for scale, the scale is going to be on the bottom of the cell. And so you want to take the sun and look down like this. So you're looking, so that sun is going right at the bottom. And it's you can't see scale just by looking like that. I'm sorry, I'm not looking right now. I will look later. So having the proper lighting is really important. I think that can't be underestimated. You can miss a lot of stuff if it's cloudy or if you're in your garage. So really use as much light as you can. And another thing about sharpening your observational skills is think about what you expect to find before you even start. So don't just go thinking you're just gonna look and see what's up. Have in your head, okay, it's April, the maples are blooming, or maybe maybe it's been raining for a long time, and so you expect maybe there might be some European foul brood, maybe. So you're gonna really key in and think about that before you go in, and have that kind of search image in your head. And then ask your friends, ask your bee club people, what are they seeing? A lot of times European foul brood there's like a bad year and everybody has it. And sometimes it's just like one or two people have it. Sometimes AFB can spread. Sometimes, this is very rare, but sometimes you could buy equipment or nukes from a beekeeper that had it, and then what if suddenly 5 people have it in your club? You can kind of trace back. So ask around and ask what everybody else is seeing, and that can help you when you do your inspection. So then let's go to the hive. So I have a little hive set up here, and I have some dead bees, and also some little things. Can anyone tell me what these little things are on the porch? You guys are far away. What?
Dead larvae.
Dead larvae, yep. And they're mummified. So it's chalk brood. Yeah, so I'm going to show you how to tell that, oh, of course, okay.
They're just kind of coming apart, huh?
Yes, so chalk brood is different from, maybe I'll give these to you and you can like pass them around. If you put a frame of moldy pollen in your hive, in a good colony, and they clean out the pollen, you're going to get a bunch of little pellets that look just like that. But if you look really closely, you'll see the segments in that larvae, in that mummified larvae. So look really closely for those segments, and you'll see. I have a whole bunch more. Maybe we'll do it when we gather.
Okay.
But lots of chalk brood mummies. So this is actually really common in Oregon Springs and Washington. The chalk brood loves wet, cold weather, low ventilation, and so you'll see a whole bunch of that. Chalk brood usually clears up on its own with a good nectar flow, but sometimes it doesn't. In fact, in the past few years, we've seen chalk brood really persist for a long time. And that could be a queen issue, it could be a weather issue, a stress issue. So look for chalk brood. And then, so you see the dead bees here. If you saw that many would you think that's normal or abnormal or
Normal.
normal? Yeah. A lot of people see a lot of dead bees, especially if it's concrete. When a hive is in the grass, you just don't see them as much as you do if they're on concrete. So a lot of people get alarmed when they see dead bees, especially on concrete, because it's a lot. But this is totally normal. Okay, so then how about, like, we'll have a whole bunch of dead bees in kind of a spray. Okay, so see how it kind of like goes like that? That is more of a pesticide issue. If there's a lot of them, if their tongues are sticking out, if they're twitching and like spinning on their backs, that would be a pesticide issue, and you'd want to call the ODA and see if they can come and test for pesticides. So,
Do you think that you could give me later, like, who do I contact at the ODA for a pesticide kill? Because I think a lot of people they don't know how to look that up.
yes, I could when I get home.
Yeah.
Okay. So the pesticides I guess it depends on where you live, if it's common or not. A lot of, if you're in an agricultural area, which you guys are, you might run into this, but it's really only the ODA can do anything. We can't test for it. It's like $600 a sample. Yeah.
We're somewhat surrounded by Weyerhaeuser property. Are there sprays?
Yeah.
They're very toxic for bees.
Well, I don't know because I don't know what they're spraying, but they do spray herbicides.
Yeah. They're
they-
probably spraying mostly herbicides.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually after a clear cut or a
Yeah.
select cut. Then on like year 2 and year 4 they spray. So
Right.
contact Weyerhaeuser and they will notify you before they spray, and then you can keep your
Well,
bees in.
they actually sent me a certified letter one year, but that was when they were putting urea on the tree. Chip said, no, they're not doing that anymore. It's like, I couldn't, this happened, the letter was still in my truck, and it's like, but they never contacted me when they were spraying, but I can tell because like their helicopters,
Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile to contact them and say, hey, I've got bees here. Let me know.
Yeah.
And which they did,
Then
but
they would get a hold of me.
yeah, we have some other resources that could be helpful too. So I'll send them to you, and you can spread them around. So yeah, this could be a pesticide thing. Some pesticides though they're not as obvious as that. The pesticides are getting different every year. There's new technologies, and sometimes they don't have real obvious symptoms like that twitchiness and spinning on their backs and stuff. So we don't always know everything. Sometimes you can have like all the bees like this right in the front. This happened to me this winter. I had a hive die, and it was just like a whole bunch of bees here, and it was a varroa crash. They just all crashed to the bottom. And this was when the hive was still alive enough where they were able to clean them out. So some people will have a dead out where all the bees are in the bottom board because they died and they didn't clean. There weren't enough alive to clean them out. So it just kind of depends on the rate of the crash. So that's dead bees. So some are fine, some are totally normal. In fact, a lot right now will be normal because the ones that are dying right now were born in October or November. So it's natural for them to die, a lot of them to die. They're building up their new generation right now. So don't be too alarmed with a lot of dead bees, but just kind of know what's a lot and what's not. Okay, so we're looking for dead bees, chalk brood mummies. What if you see pupae on the front porch? Like the white pupae, whether they're workers or drones. Is that normal?
Well, if it's hygienic, right? I mean,
If it's hygienic, yeah, okay. So hygienic behavior is when nurse bees detect a problem in a cell, and they pull the pupae out and take it out. So that is normal, but it also indicates a problem because there was a problem in there for them to take it out. So so if you see a bunch of worker pupae out there, that's a problem that you need to like key in on and take a closer look. If they're drones, so you're looking for big fat pupae with the big eyes, that is, if you see that in the fall, that's probably normal because they're trying to get rid of the drones so they can overwinter without that extra work to do. But it could also indicate, if you see it any time of year, it could indicate nutritional problems as well. So anytime you see pupae, just kind of, that's a red flag. So take a closer look. And then live drones, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask about, you were talking about the nutritional problems. I had heard somewhere that they eat, if they're starving or like they need that they'll like cannibalize the larva.
Yes.
So why would they pull them out versus cannibalize them?
Well, drones are pretty expendable to a colony, so they're taking out more mouths to feed. So
right, I understand that. Yeah, but why wouldn't they just eat them? Why would they drag them out?
They're not starving.
they could.
Yeah, that's what
They only eat them when they're really hungry.
too many drones.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I would think maybe because that time of the year they're full of honey stores. They don't need to eat them.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, if they're eating the larvae, they're eating protein.
Right.
If they're eating honey, it's carbohydrates. So if they are not eating the larvae, then maybe they have enough protein. That would just be my guess.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
assume that eggs and larvae are more digestible than like full adult drone.
That's a good point too. Oh, an adult drone, yeah, but even
The
a
pupa are pretty
pupil
adult.
drone is probably more developed.
Oh, we're talking about people drones. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you were talking about why don't they just eat the adult drone?
Oh, they like.
I know.
Okay, so adult drones on the porch, that's absolutely normal in the fall. In the spring though, that's probably, we want the drones in the hive. And unless they're coming out to do some orientation flights and they're going to start mating, that's one thing. But if you see a lot of dead ones or with the pupae, then it's just like key into these oddities. That's what you really want to have in your head. What's not quite right about the situation? And then look further. And have you all seen bees with deformed wings? No? I should have brought some. We're going to start collecting them.
Okay.
Okay. We'll make little
That'll be
boxes.
pretty easy.
It'll be, yeah. So that's deformed wings. It's from a virus that's transmitted by the mites. And it's a pretty easy way to diagnose a major mite problem in your colony. So if you see a bunch of bees with like string wings or crippled wings, then it's time to take a sample. It's probably too late, but you don't know. So we got to take a sample to find out. So that's what we see on the outside of the hive. And then we're going to open the hive, and I have this hive. It's one of those teaching hives, but the pictures aren't that great. So we're just going to kind of go with it. And the really great stuff is going to be what we have in that cooler. But what we want to look for is, we want to open the hive and see big puffy white larvae. So there is no variation of a healthy larva other than puffy and white, C-shaped, just like that. We don't want any yellow, no brown, no any other color or shape or anything. So that is a really important point. Let's see, spotty brood patterns. Okay, this is a pretty nice brood pattern. This is pretty solid. This is probably a really good queen and a well-nourished, healthy colony. It's wall-to-wall brood, really nice pattern. Maybe a few skips here or there, but that's not really a big deal. This is labeled mixed brood, and I think if I saw this, I would want to look a little closer. It's a little bit spotty, and I also see just a few perforated caps. If you saw a bunch of bees, like maybe if you saw 4 or 5 those little like emerging bees, little teddy bear bees, really fuzzy coming out, then you know it's spotty because they're emerging. They are just like at the late stage of this, they're just emerging. So that's what's making the spottiness. But you want to take a really close look and make sure that's why, because that it's not a disease. It's not varroa or AFB or EFB, or actually all of these diseases have spotty brood patterns. So that's that. Some more brood. This is emerging brood. You guys have seen that. But again, you guys should come, when we all come, you should take a look at these, because there's some, you should never see a pupa. Like a developing bee should be in this cocoon, under the cappings. They don't eat, they don't do anything, but they just sit there and develop. Their wings are forming, their legs, everything. If that's uncapped, it's going to die, and it's uncapped because of those nurse bees that are hygienic and bringing those affected bees out. So that's a big red flag if you see uncapped pupae. Okay.
Do you want to explain the difference between a larva and a pupae?
Yeah. Yes, let's go back. So a larva is just the open stage. It's the worm stage.
This looks like snot, kind of like snot in there.
If they're just like a curl, these actually look like
If it's
worms.
disease.
They're like,
Oh, like a little worm.
like,
Okay.
yeah,
Like a grub.
yeah, gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a maggot, kind of.
Yeah, a sweet
little
maggot.
baby.
A really nice maggot.
Where's some snot?
Yeah, C-shaped. They're just really nicely tucked in there. They just fit perfectly,
Oh, that's
and
the jelly.
of all their different ages.
That's the clean jelly, okay.
That's okay. The jelly's a really good point. You want to see. I have such a great picture. Maybe I'll just send you some pictures.
Well, if you go back to last year's Zoom recording, you will see these awesome pictures of what healthy larvae look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have on there also about what it looks like whenever they've uncapped a pupa.
Yes.
You know, because the pupas start to look like an adult bee. They start to get their eyes and their wings, and
Yes. We have great pictures of that. And so we have pictures of larvae, which are the worms, the open, and it becomes a pupa when it's capped. They don't even pupate until they're capped. So they're capped at the absolute biggest, fattest larval stage. The bees cap them, then they stretch out, they lengthen out, and then they start forming. And I think there's some diagrams out there that are really cool, but if they're in that C shape, that's a larva. Anyway, so we have pictures of them in that royal jelly or worker jelly, just puddles of it, and that's a really key thing that you want in your hive. That's a healthy colony that has the proper nutrition. If you see these sitting with no jelly and they're dry, you're going to have major problems because they're starving. They are not being fed enough. They may become bees, like adult bees, but they'll be compromised in some way because they're just not eating. They're not eating enough. So now we're going to talk about seasonality with diseases. Our biggest diseases with bees are American foul brood, European foul brood, chalk brood, sac brood sometimes, and parasitic mite syndrome. Nosema is sometimes, I don't really see that a lot anymore. Do you?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, it seems like Serrani is, it doesn't have a lot of visible symptoms, like,
Right.
especially older.
So it might be there, we don't see it though.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
So
Got a microscope.
if you have bees that are, you're feeding them, but they're not taking up the feed and they're just kind of stagnating, they're not growing, then you might have Nosema serrana. And because Nosema serrana is the species of Nosema that just doesn't have a lot of symptoms that you see, like it doesn't have all the poop in the front and inside. So if you have really stagnating bees, then send them in. We will do a test for you to see Nosema. Because yeah, you have to have a microscope to see the spores. And other than that, did I say chalk brood? Okay, and tracheal mites used to be a problem, but we don't see that very much either. And we think it's because our mite treatments are also effective on tracheal mites. Yeah.
So there's something they always talk about called snot brood. Is that a kind of EFB, like, or is that like a variant or something?
Well,
Do they even know what that is at this point?
usually, I've heard people talk about snot brood being its own distinct thing. and I'm not sure about that. Sometimes European foul brood can have a lot of variation, lots of different kinds of melty, snotty, twisted yuck, just general, just a lot of yuck. And also parasitic mite syndrome, I see what I could imagine someone would call snot brood. But I don't.
It's just like a
It's more of a
colloquialism.
symptom, yeah.
A symptom, yes. I don't think it's a distinct disease, but there's also a lot we don't know. There are things we're learning about European foul brood so much still. There are huge projects going on all across the country on European foul brood. So we don't know everything yet. But it's great that we're trying, we're learning. So I don't quite know the answer.
Okay. Awesome.
So seasonality, so European foul brood is going to most likely show up around April and May, sometimes June. It's been lasting a lot longer lately, and that's another thing that the researchers are taking a look at. Why is it lasting longer? Usually it clears right up with the blackberry flow, and you don't need to do anything about it. You don't need to do any treatment. But sometimes it's just persisting for so long that it's really dialing back the colony and affecting their honey production and just their growth. And so you can step in and use antibiotics, but you need to get a veterinary feed directive, and I can send you info on that to spread around how to get one of those. So that's one of those. It's a spring disease. So again, when you're going to do an inspection, think about what you expect to see in spring. We expect to see chalk brood. I'm pretty sure you will all see chalk brood sometime in your life. It's pretty ubiquitous. It usually goes away. If you don't see some of these go away, here's a good chalk brood frame. These pictures, they're terrible, but we'll show you the chalk brood mummies. But they just kind of stick in there, and like they're these hunks of chalk-looking larvae, and it's a fungus. It's the fungus mycelium, like covering and mummifying the larvae. So if you have a frame, like a pretty solid frame of chalk brood, just pull that frame out, and I would ditch it, and then put in the new frame, a fresh frame of foundation, or unaffected comb. And sometimes that works. Sometimes that's all it takes. You're just taking out the whole problem. A brood break works as well. Like if you have European foul brood or chalk brood, these are brood diseases. If you take out the brood, they can't reproduce for just a little while, and that might be enough to dial it back. Yeah.
When you take the frame out, do you have to chuck it, or can you do something to it to reuse it, or should you just chuck it?
I think if you really cleaned it super well, like carved out all the if you had plastic foundation, really got all the wax off, and maybe did some like super makeup. I would think it's a lot of work.
It is. I clean frames. Scrape as much wax, throw them in a tub with chlorine water, and it's a lot of work. Pressure washer to clean them. But so many people gave me frames because they didn't want them. It's like, I'll take them.
Yeah. Yes.
Glenn Andreessen talked to us quite a few years ago, and on his plastic frames, he found he could throw them on his
Compost.
compost pile.
And the soldier flies would just eat it up.
Yeah, and clean them right up.
Clean it to the.
It's amazing.
Clean them perfectly.
Awesome. He should take pictures like stages.
Yeah. Oh, he does.
He
He does
does?
have that. Yeah, you could ask him for them.
Okay, cool. Beekeepers are the most innovative people. I love it. Okay, so European foul brood, chalk brood are spring diseases. They may last into summer. Parasitic mite syndrome we usually see, it usually gets really bad in August and September, especially if you're too late with your treatments. So that's just, you might see it in spring, but most likely you'll see it really bad in August and September. But again, it really depends on your treatment.
What is the best spring mite? What do you think is the most effective spring mite treatment?
That's a great question. The only thing you can use right now, because it's so cold, would be Apivar, which are the synthetic strips, Hopguard, which is those cardboard strips with the goopy stuff. That's it. It's too cold for formic acid, Formic Pro or Midoy Quick Strips. But once the temperatures get warmer, that's a great option. I really like those formic acid products. I think they work really well. You do lose some brood, but you're probably losing your most diseased brood. Like if you have any if you have a lot of mite pressure, your pupae in there will probably have viruses. So you're losing some. I think it's okay. To me, that amount of loss is worth the effectiveness of that product.
Would you use the formic acid this week, later on this week, when it's so warm?
It depends on what the lows are. So, you know, when it says 68 or whatever, sometimes it's 68 for 2 hours, and that's not enough. So the low end of formic is, I think, 55 or so. I'm not sure. So I think the lows are just maybe a little bit too low. So I'd wait a little bit longer.
What I find is that I wait until after the maple blossom, because whatever you put in now means you're going to miss the maple blossom. You can't harvest that honey. So maples are going to bloom in about 3 weeks. So I usually wait right at the end of maple blossom. And then the weather's warmer. You can put just about anything in, and you've got exactly the number of weeks before blackberry. That's for here. Corvallis has more weeks of you guys probably have 3 more weeks of spring than we do.
So
Formic you can
you
use
pull
with
that honey
supers.
off and harvest it then?
I'm sorry, what?
Formic you can use with supers.
Yeah, right, yeah, so,
Possibly hot.
but it's just too cold now for the formic. So
Yeah.
by the time the maple is done, you can use formic.
Half of ours, yeah. An 8-week treatment, and then you have to wait like several weeks after that before you can put super.
Why
Yeah.
can't you use oxalic acid?
Oh, okay. You can. You can. Oxalic acid is fantastic, but it's best when there's no brood, because then you're getting all the mites. If you do it during a period with brood, you're going to have to do it repeatedly, and even then, I would be really careful with taking a sample to make sure it has worked well enough. We've been doing a lot of oxalic acid trials, and we did this summer. We did it with full brood, as much brood as the colony would have in the peak of summer. We did it 3 times, and the bees looked horrible. I wasn't sure they were going to make it through the fall. But that's anecdotal. That doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. It's just that's what we saw. So we went in and retreated everything. So you really have to watch. Oxalic acid is great. It's a great solution. Either dribble. So the dribble method works really well when the bees are clustered, because you're getting them all. If it's nice and warm out, they're going to be all over the place and flying. So if you do the vaporizer method, you can do that early in the morning. And so yeah, I would do it, but make sure you sample. Yeah.
So you said the bees looked terrible when you did oxalic during the summer. Was that because the mites were not in control, or because the oxalic was damaging them?
The mites. It was the mites.
Okay.
It didn't dial the mites back. Yeah, that was a great question.
It doesn't work on the brood.
No.
Is that what- Okay.
No. Yep.
So for a new person, how do you apply oxalic acid?
That you can buy a device that you should watch a video.
That steams it up in
Yeah,
there?
it's a vaporizer, and
Okay.
so you put it in there. It's heated. Everything has to be really sealed, and it just kind of fumes
Okay.
inside the hive.
Yeah,
You have to
okay,
wear a
I've seen
lot
that.
of garb for safety. But watch videos and just follow the label, and
Okay.
and it's okay. But that's the vaporizer method, and the other method is to mix it with sugar syrup, and then dribble it. And we do that in December. You dribble it on the bees, and
Oh, you go between the frames, not do along the top of the frames.
right in
Right.
between,
Okay.
and you want it right on those bee bodies, and then they kind of tumble around, and they get it all over each other.
And our club is in the process of buying a vaporizer, so it'll be available to club members.
Oh, that's neat. Okay.
Awesome. But really be careful. I was so worried about it for the longest time. I refused to use it because I thought it's just not worth the safety risk. But then I used it and I was like, what's the big deal? It's really not that bad because your hive is totally sealed. It's anticlimactic. You put the thing in there and you turn it on and it's like nothing happens, but really there's a lot going on in there. So
You still do have to wear a mask though.
you do. Yes, you still need everything. Like the respirator, not just the those masks.
So how effective is the thyme oil?
That's great too.
It's great, but that has to be real warm too.
Yeah.
Temperature has to
Yeah.
be real warm.
Does it do brood?
No.
It doesn't either.
The only one is Mitaway Quick Strips or Formant Pro that affects the brood. So anything you use, there's lots of products out there. The varroa management book, Tools for Varroa Management, that's online and it's available for you to look at all the pros and cons and see which one fits you, what you want to do, what temperatures you're looking at, what kind of. They even have this little interactive quiz.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I did that the other day.
It's really fun. I do a undergrad class online and I make them go through that hypothetically and it's really fun. You can choose choose your own adventure kind of thing. So, and it's great. There are a lot of products out there and you can get overwhelmed with all these like APA products. They just have all these similar names, but there are options for whatever is your situation.
Okay, this is not necessarily an anti-varroa treatment question, but I know that at some point historically, varroa mites were not a thing, and now they are a thing. And my question is, obviously the landscape has changed. People garden different than they used to. The native plant selection is, making a comeback. But is there, obviously there's a varroa treatment made from hops. Is there any specific things that you would recommend that you have in your garden that might help naturally keep varroa mites even lower? Not to say that you shouldn't treat for them, but is growing hops or oregano or garlic, things that they get into that have those natural, antibiotic type, have you found anything like that to be effective to help you along that process?
No, but I don't think it would hurt. First of all of those things you said are great nectar sources also.
Not hops though.
Not hops.
Not hops.
But I don't know. There's some research I think from Argentina about oregano that people are really paying attention to, and so it's just gonna take time for that kind of research to come through and tell us if the results are real, if it can be replicated, if it's different with the controls and the treatments. So there's a lot for that research to tell us something definitive, but why not? But sometimes you can't tell somebody enough, and people will do. I've heard of people put rhubarb leaves inside the colony, or garlic cloves, or gosh, I should keep track of this kind of stuff.
Sue does that.
No,
you do?
not
Rhubarb.
really, no.
Oh, I thought you did. I thought you did the rhubarb.
I put the lavender. And
Lavender, yeah.
Okay, and so that's okay. But if that's your only varroa treatment, then you have to follow up with a sample and make sure it worked. I kind of don't think it will, but you have to see that for yourself. And so we're gonna do some varroa sampling. So whatever you do, even if you do no treatment and you do the drone comb thing, do you guys know what that is?
No.
Yeah.
Who's
Briefly explain.
Okay. It's you buy a drone frame you buy a green drone frame from the bee supply store, and they're larger, so the comb is larger, and the bees will draw it all out, and they'll lay a bunch of drones in there, and the varroa love drone comb or drone brood because they can lay more eggs in there. They have more time to develop and reproduce in there. So once that's all capped, you pull that out, and you're taking out a whole bunch of varroa. So fine, that reduces your varroa, but is it enough? You don't know that unless you take a sample. So there's splits, brood breaks, all of that kind of stuff. That can be, if you're really on your game and you have a really good calendar and a ton of time, you could probably make it happen, but you won't know unless you take a sample and know for sure. One of the things that I want, if you're looking at your hive and you're looking for mites, I don't want you guys to ever just like look for mites. You're not going to find them. They are on the bellies of bees. So when you're looking at a frame, you're looking at their backs. And their favorite place is to tuck up in those bellies and be in the comb itself reproducing. So you won't see mites. So the only way to do it is to take a sample. Okay, so has anyone done the Varroa Easy Check? Okay, this is a great device. Ours is super gross, but we use it a lot. And so I have my little dead bees here. You just collect, actually what I should do, you take a frame like this, and you have your tub, and you give it a good snap, and just shake it, and that will throw a whole bunch of bees into your tub. And you should try to do it from the center, because that's where most of the varroa will be, because that's where they breed, in the brood frames. Yep. And so,
I want you the queen.
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Okay, so now we have our tub full of dead bees. Knock them all into the corner.
But they are
Not dead, they're just nurse bees.
Sorry, they're not dead. You guys are great. Thank you for keeping me. So you're collecting your live bees, and
As easy as that.
yes, and actually, it's not that bad.
They don't fly, you know, they're bees, they just stay in there crawling around.
Exactly.
And how many bees? How much? A cup or a half cup?
Half cup,
Half
which is
cup.
300 bees. And it sounds like a lot, but your queen is pumping out 1,000 a day. And they're also dying at a rate of at least 1,000 a day, naturally. So 300 bees isn't a lot, especially when this could save your colony, because you are doing a treatment. Maybe it's a iffy time of year, maybe you have lots of reasons why a treatment may or may not work. This is what's going to tell you it worked or not. So the bees go in here, and if you fill this with alcohol up to the line, and then you start shaking it, swishing it for a good solid minute or so, and all the varroa will fall to the bottom. These are great devices. Yeah.
What about the powdered sugar?
Yep, we'll do the powdered sugar next.
Because that doesn't kill them.
That doesn't kill, well, it doesn't kill most. So that's the Easy Check, and this is really effective and accurate.
What is that called?
Easy check.
Varroa Easy Check.
Easy check.
Yep, I'll leave it up here. Okay, now for the powdered sugar shake, you need a mason jar, a wide mouth mason jar. Draw a line at 100 milliliters, or half cup, and that's 300, that'll be 300 bees. And this is number 8 hardware cloth or mesh. We have a great hardware store that lets you buy it in bulk, so we can just cut a little strip off, but you might have to buy it in a roll. Maybe the club or something, I don't know. We've also had like craft night where we all get together at Christmas and we just lay all this stuff out and we make presents for our beekeeper friends. So you